Language Foundations Vocabulary Flashcards, helping you achieve understanding.
The property of being wild or turbulent. The storm's violence. An act of aggression, as one against a person who resists. He may accomplish by craft in the long run what he cannot do by force and violence in the short one. A turbulent state resulting in injuries and destruction, etc. The property of being wild or turbulent. The property of being wild or turbulent. The property of being wild or turbulent. State of violent mental agitation. Classical mythology. The hideous snake-haired monsters, usually 3 in number, who pursued unpunished criminals. A feeling of intense anger. Hell hath no fury like a woman scorned. The property of being wild or turbulent. The property of being wild or turbulent. Intensity or forcefulness of expression. The vehemence of his denial. A feeling of extreme emotional intensity. The wildness of his anger. The property of being wild or turbulent. An intractably barbarous or uncultivated state of nature. An unruly disposition to do as one pleases. Liza had always had a tendency to wildness. Of a law, having legal validity. Group of people willing to obey orders. A public force is necessary to give security to the rights of citizens. Physical energy or intensity. He hit with all the force he could muster. A put-out of a base runner who is required to run. The put-out is accomplished by holding the ball while touching the base to which the runner must advance before the runner reaches that base. The shortstop got the runner at second on a force. To cause to do through pressure or necessity, by physical, moral or intellectual means. She forced him to take a job in the city. Force into or from an action or state, either physically or metaphorically. Urge or force, a person, to an action, constrain or motivate. Move with force. Impose urgently, importunately, or inexorably. She forced her diet fads on him. Squeeze like a wedge into a tight space. A unit that is part of some military service. He sent Caesar a force of 6,000 men. One possessing or exercising power or influence or authority. May the force be with you. An act of aggression, as one against a person who resists. He may accomplish by craft in the long run what he cannot do by force and violence in the short one. Take by force. A group of people having the power of effective action. He joined forces with a band of adventurers. A powerful effect or influence. The force of his eloquence easily persuaded them. Do forcibly, exert force. Don't force it. Physics, the influence that produces a change in a physical quantity. Force equals mass times acceleration. High level or degree, the property of being intense. Chromatic purity, freedom from dilution with white and hence vivid in hue. The amount of energy transmitted, as by acoustic or electromagnetic radiation. He adjusted the intensity of the sound. The magnitude of sound, usually in a specified direction. High level or degree, the property of being intense. The feeling of a hostile person. He could no longer contain his hostility. A state of deep-seated ill will. A hostile, very unfriendly, disposition. He could not conceal his hostility. Violent action that is hostile and usually unprovoked. Violent action that is hostile and usually unprovoked. A feeling of hostility that arouses thoughts of attack. A disposition to behave aggressively. Deliberately unfriendly behavior. The act of initiating hostilities. A state of violent disturbance and disorder, as in politics or social conditions generally. A state of violent disturbance and disorder, as in politics or social conditions generally. The Industrial Revolution was a period of great turbulence. Unstable flow of a liquid or gas. Instability in the atmosphere. A violent disturbance. A state of violent disturbance and disorder, as in politics or social conditions generally. Disturbance usually in protest. Geology. A rise of land to a higher elevation, as in the process of mountain building. The trait of extreme cruelty. A brutal, barbarous, savage act. The property of being untamed and ferocious. A craving for barbaric splendor, for savagery and color and the throb of drums. The property of being untamed and ferocious. The coastline is littered with testaments to the savageness of the waters. A joke that seems extremely funny. A state of disorder involving group violence. A wild gathering involving excessive drinking and promiscuity. Engage in boisterous, drunken merrymaking. A public act of violence by an unruly mob. Take part in a riot. Disturb the public peace by engaging in a riot. Students were rioting everywhere in 1968. Violence or physical abuse directed toward your spouse or domestic partner or other members of the household. A public act of violence by an unruly mob. Violence exhibited by drivers in traffic. Something that is desired intensely. His rage for fame destroyed him. Behave violently, as if in state of a great anger. An interest followed with exaggerated zeal. It was all the rage that season. A feeling of intense anger. His face turned red with rage. A state of extreme anger. She fell into a rage and refused to answer. Be violent, as of fires and storms. Feel intense anger. Violent state of the elements. The sea hurled itself in thundering rage against the rocks.
Become our student and get access to effective and free educational materials. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to become a part of our growing YouTube community and to learn English effectively.